My name is Avery Collins, and last winter, I learned the kind of truth that knocks the air clean out of your lungs. It happened on a snowy Sunday night in Boulder, Colorado, inside the same living room where I spent every Christmas morning as a kid. Wrapping paper everywhere, cinnamon rolls on the table, my mom humming along to the radio. Back then, I thought that room meant home. Turns out, I was wrong. I had worked for almost a year. Double shifts, 4 a.m. bakery prep, holiday catering, just to save up enough money to give my family something special. My mom, Linda, and my stepdad, Rick, were coming up on their 40th anniversary, and I wanted to surprise them with a celebration they'd remember forever. So I dropped $1,800, pretty much everything I'd saved, on a reservation at a gorgeous lodge in Estes Park. Mountain views, private dining room, champagne brunch, the whole deal. I walked into the house that night with this glowing feeling in my chest. You know that fluttery, stupid excitement you get when you think you're finally doing something good enough for the people who raised you? Yeah, that feeling. During dinner, I stood up and said, "I have a surprise for you guys. I booked an anniversary weekend for all of us next month." For a second, the room went quiet. And then Tyler, my 26-year-old brother who still lived at home and hadn't held a job for more than a month, burst out laughing. "An anniversary trip? For family only, Avery. Since when do you get to decide?" he said, smirking like he'd just cracked the world's funniest joke. Rick leaned back in his chair chuckling. My mom shook her head, smiling the way people do when they're embarrassed for you, not because of you. My stomach twisted. They weren't surprised, they were amused. Like my effort, my money, my time meant nothing. And Tyler didn't stop. "Seriously, Ave, don't make it weird. We can take care of something like that ourselves." The table laughed again. Something inside me just snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, but in that quiet way where you suddenly realize no one in the room sees your worth. Not even a little. I sat back down slowly, feeling heat rise up my neck, the kind that burns more from shame than anger. I picked at my food in silence for a minute, then pushed my chair back. No one tried to stop me. No one asked where I was going. No one said, "Thank you for thinking of us." Halfway to the door, I turned around and looked at them. Really looked at them. And it hit me. I had spent years trying to earn a place at a table that was never meant to have a seat for me. Before I continue, let me say this. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, drop your story in the comments and subscribe, because the way this whole situation unfolded, you don't want to miss it. I stepped outside into the cold night air, my lungs burning from more than just the wind. And right there, on that snow-covered driveway, I made a promise to myself. This ends tonight. When I drove home after that disastrous family dinner, the roads were slick with ice, but my thoughts were even messier. I kept replaying their laughter, the way my mom brushed me off, the way Rick acted like I was some clueless outsider, the way Tyler made me feel small. I had spent months planning that anniversary trip, months believing that maybe, just maybe, this time they'd appreciate me. But the truth is, that night wasn't the beginning of the problem. It was the breaking point of something much bigger, something I'd been carrying for 5 years. See, when I was younger, my mom loved telling people I was the responsible one. I was the one who cleaned up everyone else's messes. It started slow. Little requests, small emergencies, tiny fires I kept putting out because, well, that's what family does, right? But somewhere along the way, my help went from, "Wow, thank you, Avery," to, "Hey, transfer me $150 by tonight." I never even questioned it. Not at first. I made about $45,000 a year running the front end of a cozy Italian cafe in downtown Boulder. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work. Opening the shop before sunrise, grinding espresso shots until my hands smelled like roasted beans, managing schedules, training new baristas, smoothing over customer complaints, handling the books. I barely had time for myself, but I liked my job. It grounded me. What didn't ground me was the constant drain from my own family. My mom, Linda, would call with that soft, worried voice she used whenever she wanted something. Avery, honey, could you help with the electric bill? Rick's been behind on hours this month. Then Rick would step in with his favorite line, "You're doing better than we are. That's just how family works." And Tyler, well, he treated me like his personal Venmo machine. "Yo, Ave, short on rent again. Spot me? I'll pay you back next month." He never paid me back. Not once. Every time I tried to say no, the guilt rolled in like a storm cloud. They raised you. They need you. Don't be ungrateful. So I kept saying yes. Even when it hurt. Even when it meant skipping dinners with friends, repairing my car months late, saying no to trips I desperately wanted to take. And slowly, almost without noticing, I started shaping my life around their needs, not mine. Then came the bigger emergencies. My mom's medical expenses after a work injury, Rick's truck repairs after he ignored the check engine light for months, Tyler's career investments that somehow always turned into gaming equipment or bar tabs. The numbers piled up fast. $2,500 here, $1,100 there, $600 every couple of months. And before I knew it, I had given them close to $24,000, money I desperately needed to build my own future. Meanwhile, they acted like it was normal, expected. I was the responsible one, after all. But the moment that always sticks with me happened last summer. I was late to open the cafe because my car broke down on the way in. I sat in the parking lot at 5:15 a.m., crying behind the steering wheel because I didn't have the money to fix it. I had drained my savings just 2 weeks earlier, helping my mom cover a sudden dental bill. That same afternoon, I saw my family tagged in a photo on Facebook. My mom with a fresh haircut and a new handbag, Rick beaming in front of a giant flat-screen TV, Tyler at a bar in Denver flashing a new watch. My money, my sacrifice, my exhaustion. Their fun. And yet, I still convinced myself it wasn't that bad. I told myself they were struggling. I told myself I was doing the right thing. Because when you grow up believing that love equals sacrifice, you don't recognize exploitation until it's swallowing you whole. Looking back now, those 5 years weren't just about money. They were years of me trying to be seen. Years of hoping my family would treat me the way I treated them. But instead, they treated me like a resource, something to use, not someone to love. And that realization was about to hit even harder. The shift from sadness to anger didn't happen all at once. It wasn't some dramatic movie scene where everything explodes at the same time. It was quieter than that. Like a slow boil you don't notice until the pot suddenly overflows and scorches your hand. About 2 weeks after that awful family dinner, I started noticing things that just didn't add up. The first crack came on a random Tuesday morning. I was scrolling through Instagram during my lunch break at the cafe, half asleep, sipping lukewarm coffee, when a photo stopped me cold. It was my mom, Linda, standing in front of a cabin in Vail, wrapped in a fancy white shawl. The caption read, "Much-needed self-care weekend with my boys." My eyebrows shot up. Self-care weekend? In Vail? My mom hadn't taken a real vacation in years. At least, that's what she always told me when she asked for help with bills. And that shawl she was wearing? I'd seen it before, in a boutique near Pearl Street. It cost almost $200. At first, I'd tried to justify it. Maybe someone gifted it to her. Maybe the cabin wasn't that expensive. But when I tapped through the next photos, my stomach twisted tighter. There was Rick, holding a wine glass, standing next to a charcuterie board bigger than my monthly grocery budget. And there was Tyler, posing with ski gear. Brand new ski gear. My phone buzzed with a cafe order ready to go out, but I couldn't move. My hands felt numb. That wasn't struggling. That wasn't barely scraping by. That was a family vacation funded by someone. And that someone was me. Still, I told myself, don't jump to conclusions. Maybe there's an explanation. But deep down, I already knew. A few days later, another sign hit me like a truck. It was payday Friday, my favorite day of the month, the one day my bank account actually looked alive. I planned to finally replace my worn-out work shoes, maybe catch brunch with Naomi on Sunday. But when I checked my account balance, it was lower than expected. Not by a few dollars, by a few hundred. I checked every transaction. Nothing made sense. I hadn't overspent. I hadn't forgotten about anything. Then it hit me. I pulled up my Venmo history, and there it was. 2 transfers to my mom from earlier in the week. $180, $140. I had no memory of sending them. My jaw clenched. I checked my email. Sure enough, 2 automatic requests from her buried between work notices and bakery invoices. I must have accepted them in a hurry on a busy shift without even realizing it. My muscle memory trained from years of saying yes. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, something bitter pooled in my chest. Not sadness, not confusion, anger. Because once you start seeing the truth, you can't unsee it. And the truth was everywhere. Tyler posted a new story the next day, him at a bar in Denver holding 2 giant margaritas. The caption read, "Treating myself. I deserve it." Treating himself with what money? He hadn't worked in months. Then Rick uploaded a photo of their living room, a brand new 75-inch TV I couldn't afford in my wildest dreams took up half the wall. My hands tightened around my phone until my knuckles turned white. How could they smile like that, laugh like that, pose like that? All while I was waking up at 4 a.m. to prep bread dough, working shifts so long my feet went numb, skipping meals just to stretch my paycheck. It felt like the world had turned upside down, and the people who should have had my back were the very ones pushing me closer to the edge. I tried talking to Naomi about it one afternoon as we closed the cafe. She listened quietly as I spiraled, my voice shaky, my thoughts tangled. When I finished, she said 3 words that almost knocked the wind out of me. "Avery, they're using you." Her tone wasn't dramatic. She wasn't trying to stir me up. It was just plain truth. They've been using you for years. You just didn't want to see it. And that's when something shifted deep inside me, like a lock clicking open. A part of me finally admitted what I'd been avoiding for so long. My family wasn't struggling. My family wasn't depending on me. My family was living off me. And they didn't even pretend to care. That was the moment the sadness started to burn away, and in its place, pure, undeniable fury. If anger is a flame, then despair is the moment the flame hits your skin and you realize there's no one coming to help you put it out. That was what January felt like for me. A slow burn turning into a full-on firestorm. It started on a quiet Monday night after a long shift. We'd had a rush at the cafe, and I stayed late helping a new barista close the espresso bar. My feet were throbbing, my apron was dusted in flour, and all I wanted was to collapse on my couch, drink something warm, and pretend my life wasn't falling apart. Instead, when I walked into my apartment, I noticed a stack of unopened mail on the floor. One envelope caught my eye. A thick, official-looking letter addressed to me, but from a bank I'd never used. At first, I assumed it was some generic offer, but when I tore it open, my stomach tightened. Thank you for opening your new line of credit. A credit account, in my name. A balance of $2,200 already charged. Electronics, gaming equipment, home speakers, all shipped to my mother's address. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My hands trembled so hard the paper rattled. My heartbeat pounded in my ears like a drum. No, they wouldn't cross that line. Right? I grabbed my phone and called my mom, my voice shaking. Mom, what is this? Why is there an Amazon account in my name? Why are there electronics being shipped to your house? There was a long pause, too long, before she finally sighed. Avery, sweetheart, Tyler needed a new setup for streaming. You know he's been trying to get that going. It's his dream. I felt like I'd been slapped. Mom, that's identity theft, I whispered, stunned. She huffed. Don't be dramatic. We were going to pay it off eventually. You always make a fuss over nothing. Nothing. $2,200 was nothing? I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. I thought that would be the worst of it, but the emotional avalanche had only begun. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, tears sliding silently into my hairline. The betrayal sank deeper with every passing hour. My own family wasn't just using me, they were stealing from me. And yet, a stupid part of me still wondered if I was overreacting, still wondered if I should give them another chance. The next morning, as I dragged myself into work, Naomi took one look at me and said, Avery, what happened? The words fell out of me, broken, messy, raw. When I finished, she stared at me with the kind of expression people get when watching a slow-motion car crash. Aves, that's not love. That's abuse. Hearing it out loud cracked something inside me. But the real breaking point came 2 days later. My boss, Marco, called me into his office. I thought he was going to talk about scheduling. Instead, he closed the door gently and said, Avery, you've been distracted. You've made mistakes. You're exhausted. Is everything okay? I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. I just sat there, staring at my trembling hands. In that moment, I realized the truth. My family wasn't just draining my money. They were draining my life. My job, my health, my peace. Piece by piece, they were taking everything from me. That evening, I sat in my parked car outside my apartment for almost an hour, the engine off, my breath fogging the windows, my hands cold against the steering wheel. For the first time in my life, I felt completely, utterly alone. I wasn't sure who I was anymore. I wasn't sure what to do next. All I knew was that I couldn't keep living like this. Something had to change. And the next step would change everything. The morning after I hit rock bottom, I woke up with swollen eyes and a headache so sharp it felt like someone had tightened a metal band around my skull. But underneath all that pain, there was something new, something steady, a quiet, growing resolve. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about how to fix things for my family. I was thinking about how to fix things for me. When I walked into the cafe, Naomi was already there, grinding beans for the morning rush. She glanced at me, then set the grinder aside. You look like you haven't slept in a week, she said, her voice gentle but firm. I took a deep breath and told her everything. The fake Amazon account, my mom's dismissive reaction, the sinking feeling that my own family no longer respected me enough to even pretend their actions were okay. Naomi listened without interrupting, just nodding occasionally, her lips pressed into a thin line. When she finished, she leaned on the counter and said, "Avery, you need to take your power back." It was simple, direct, almost too direct, but it hit exactly where it needed to. We spent the next 20 minutes sitting at a corner table, tucked away from customers, and she laid it out for me. Steps, boundaries, protections I'd never allowed myself to consider. "Start by locking everything down," she said. "Every password, every account, every card. Anything they can touch, change it." So, that evening, sitting at my tiny kitchen table with a cup of chamomile tea, I opened my laptop and did exactly that. I changed passwords, bank accounts, Venmo, PayPal, email, everything tied to my name. I turned on two-factor authentication. I froze my credit with all 3 bureaus. I removed every saved payment method my family had access to. I even created a new bank account at a smaller credit union they'd never heard of. With each click, with each new password, it felt like I was stitching myself back together. But the real turning point came when Naomi asked a question I wasn't ready for. "Have you checked your full credit report?" I hadn't. I was scared of what I might find, but I knew I needed to know the truth. So later that night, with shaking hands, I logged into the credit bureau website and pulled the full report. What I saw made the room tilt. A personal bank loan, $5,500, opened 3 weeks earlier. My name, my SSN, my signature, well, a sloppy forgery of it. I scrolled further and found co-signers, 2 names, Linda Collins, Tyler Collins. For a moment, I genuinely thought I might throw up. It wasn't just carelessness. It wasn't borrowing or family emergencies anymore. It was deliberate, calculated, criminal. My breath shook. Tears gathered, hot and furious. How could they? How could my own mother sign my name onto a loan like that? How could my brother go along with it without blinking? The betrayal was so sharp it felt physical. I needed help, real help. Not emotional support, not pep talks, legal help. There was only one person I trusted enough to call. Greg Martin, a friend from high school who had become a lawyer in Denver. We weren't close anymore, but he'd always been the stable, level-headed type, the kind who would tell you the truth even when it hurt. When he picked up, I didn't bother with small talk. I told him everything, voice shaking, barely able to form sentences. He stayed silent, just listening without judgment. When I finished, he spoke carefully. "Avery, this is identity theft, serious identity theft. You can't just ignore it. You have grounds to file a police report, and honestly, you should." I closed my eyes, trying to breathe. The idea of reporting my own family felt like stepping over a cliff, but I also knew something with absolute clarity. If I didn't protect myself now, there would be nothing left to protect later. Greg continued, "I'll help you gather everything. Print the statements, document every charge, every message, every screenshot. We'll build the file, then you take it to the police. After that, we can talk restraining orders if you need them." Restraining orders? Against my own mother? Against my brother? The thought shattered me, but it also reminded me they had already crossed every line. I hadn't. Not yet. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by printed statements, highlighted dates, screenshots spread like evidence in a courtroom. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was preparing for war. A quiet, necessary self-defense kind of war. For the first time in years, I felt something close to hope. Not the soft, warm kind, but the sharp, determined kind that comes right before you finally take your life back. When February rolled in, the air in Boulder had that dry, biting cold that gets into your bones. It matched the way I felt inside, numb, bracing myself for impact, but strangely calm in a way I'd never felt before. Because for the first time, I wasn't reacting to what my family did to me, I was preparing.
Greg helped me organize the evidence into a clean, chronological file. Every unauthorized charge, every bank statement, the forged signatures, screenshots of my mother's messages, the vacation photos, even the Venmo requests I didn't remember approving. He pulled everything together with a lawyer's precision. "You're doing the right thing," he told me, sliding the thick folder into my hands. "Identity theft is a crime, even when it's committed by family." I swallowed hard. The word family felt sour on my tongue now. The next morning, hands cold, chest tight, I walked into the Boulder Police Department. The fluorescent lights buzzed above me as I waited at the front desk, clutching my folder like a life raft. When an officer finally called my name, everything went blurry around the edges. I told her everything, quietly, calmly, fact by fact. I didn't cry, though my throat burned the entire time. When I slid the folder across the desk, she raised her eyebrows. "This is a lot," she said gently, "but you did the right thing coming in." Her empathy almost broke me. Almost. When she filed the official report, a strange weight lifted off my chest, heavy and freeing at the same time. I walked out into the sunlight feeling like I'd stepped into a different version of my own life. But my family? They hadn't even begun to understand that the old Avery was gone. 2 nights later, the storm hit. It was the week before Valentine's Day, one of the busiest weeks at the cafe. The line wrapped around the counter, every seat filled, steam hissing from the espresso machine, while I tried to keep everything running smoothly. I was handing a to-go order to a customer when I heard the front door slam open with a thunderous crack. My stomach dropped. Rick and Tyler, of course. They stormed inside like they owned the place. Rick's face was red with anger, and Tyler's jaw was clenched in a perfect imitation of a man who thought the world owed him something. "Avery," Rick bellowed, his voice echoing across the cafe. "What the hell is this police report? What did you do?" The entire shop went silent. Hands froze over pastries. Cappuccinos sat unclaimed. Every head turned toward us. I felt heat rush up my neck. My hands shook. I took a breath. "Rick, Tyler, you need to leave," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Tyler scoffed loudly. "You froze our accounts. You're ruining everything. Mom is freaking out." Rick stepped closer, towering over me. "You went too far, Avery. Whatever issues you have, you deal with us privately. You don't sick the cops on your own family." My chest tightened, my vision blurred, my entire sense of safety evaporated. Naomi rushed to my side. "Back up," I said, "now." But he didn't. Instead, he raised his voice even louder. "She owes us after everything we've done for her." The words were so absurd, I actually laughed. A bitter, broken sound. Customers started leaving. I saw Marco, my boss, step out of the kitchen, his face stormy. "Avery, office, now," he said through clenched teeth. I followed him, fighting back tears. "A scene like that cannot happen here," he said. "I don't care whose fault it is. This is a business. One more interruption from your family, and you're done." It felt like someone punched a hole straight through my chest. When I walked back out to the cafe, Rick and Tyler were gone. But the damage wasn't. Naomi squeezed my arm. "Avery, enough is enough. You can't let them keep doing this." And she was right. That night, I called Greg. When I finished recounting everything, he didn't hesitate. "We're filing for a restraining order. No more warnings." The hearing was quick, efficient, not dramatic like in the movies. The judge read the police report. She saw the forged loan signatures. She watched the cafe footage where Rick was inches from my face, shouting. Then she looked at me, really looked at me. "Ms. Collins, you deserve to feel safe." And just like that, she granted a 1-year restraining order against both Rick and Tyler. They couldn't contact me, couldn't come near my home, my workplace, nothing. I walked out of that courthouse with Naomi and Greg beside me, the cold air sharp but clean in my lungs. For the first time in my entire life, I felt like the ground under my feet belonged to me. And the best part? They finally had to face consequences. Real ones. No shouting could undo it. No guilt trip could reverse it. No manipulation could twist it. The line had been drawn by the law itself. And in that moment, standing on the courthouse steps with snow falling quietly around me, I realized something. Justice doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like peace.
In the weeks after the restraining order was granted, life moved differently, quieter, steadier. Like someone had finally turned down a noise I didn't realize had been blaring in the background for years. I didn't wake up every morning wondering what crisis my family would drop into my lap. I didn't dread the sound of incoming texts. I didn't carry the weight of their expectations on my shoulders like a backpack full of stones. For the first time in my adult life, I could breathe. I moved into a small apartment near Pearl Street. Nothing fancy, but it had warm sunlight in the afternoons and a view of the Flatirons that made the world feel bigger, calmer. I bought myself a secondhand couch, a little bookshelf, a couple of plants. Naomi helped me hang string lights in the living room, insisting the place needed cozy energy. Every Sunday, she'd come by with pastries, and we'd talk about dreams we hadn't dared to say out loud before. She had always wanted to run a side business selling her specialty syrups. I talked about maybe opening a small bakery section inside the cafe, something that would finally be mine, not something I had to give away. And slowly, almost quietly, I started becoming someone I liked again. There were moments when the guilt tried to creep back in, late at night when the apartment was too still, when I wondered if I had really done the right thing. But every time that doubt surfaced, something grounded me. The truth. Not the version my family twisted, the real truth. They had taken from me. They had lied to me. They had crossed lines that should never be crossed, and they had done it without hesitation. Setting boundaries wasn't cruel. It was necessary. One afternoon, my phone rang with the familiar name, my mother. I stared at the screen as it buzzed and buzzed, but I didn't answer. Not out of spite, but because I finally understood that some doors, once closed, should stay that way. A few days later, my Aunt Pat sent me a long, emotional message about keeping the family together. I read it, took a deep breath, and deleted it, because I'd spent too long sacrificing my well-being to keep a family together that never cared if I fell apart. Meanwhile, the cafe was thriving again. Marco noticed my improved focus and gave me back full management responsibilities. He even asked me and Naomi to start developing a small dessert menu for spring. It felt like a new beginning, a version of my life not shaped by obligation, but by choice. And that's when it hit me. Family isn't defined by blood. Family is defined by behavior, by who shows up, by who respects you, by who doesn't destroy you just because they can. Naomi was family. Greg was family. My customers who asked how I was doing, family. Even the girl who left a sticky note on the tip jar that said, "Your smile made my day," in her own small way, family. Blood gave me relatives, but love gave me people. And if there's one thing I want anyone listening to take from my story, it's this. You are allowed to protect yourself. You are allowed to walk away from people who harm you. You are allowed to choose peace over loyalty to someone who never valued you. Your worth isn't defined by who abandoned you. It's defined by who you become after you finally choose yourself. Before I close this chapter, I want to say something directly to whoever's watching or listening right now. If you've ever had to set boundaries with your own family, you're not alone. Share your story below. Someone out there needs to hear that they're not the only one. And if this story resonated with you, hit subscribe because more people deserve to feel seen, heard, and understood. Thank you for listening. And take it from someone who learned the hard way, choosing yourself is not selfish. It's survival.